Be the envy of the neighborhood. 860 KKAT, where the grass is always greener. Welcome to Gardening Utah. Here's composter and show hoster, Jana Francis.
Welcome to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. Every week here on Gardening Utah, we give you gardening inspiration and advice from experts across the state. We talk about vegetables, flowers, trees, shrubs, and of course, your lawn. Thank you for listening. I hope this show is something that you'll look forward to checking in with every week. Whether you're a beginner or an expert, Gardening Utah aims to inspire you and keep you in the know of what tasks you should be accomplishing in your yard and meet amazing, informative experts along the way. This show airs on the radio on the weekends here in Utah at 10 a.m. on 860 AM KKAT, and episodes drop every weekend on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. On today's show, I am so excited to introduce you to a seed company right here in Utah called TrueLeafMarket.com. We are going to be talking with one of the founding partners, Parker Garlitz. And we talk about so many different things as it relates to seeds because it's that time of year to buy seeds. We talk about the difference between non-GMO seeds, hybrid seeds, heirloom seeds. We talk about how long you can store seeds and what effect time has on germination rates. We do a big deep dive in everything you're going to need to know about buying seeds. And you know what? We wrap it up at the end with an amazing coupon code for the listeners, so I can't wait for you to have a listen to this episode. I promise you're going to learn a lot. But first, the tip of the week.
860 KKAT with your Gardening Utah tip of the week.
My tip of the week is just a handful of things that you can probably do in your yard right now, depending on where you live in Utah. Now, if you have thawed soil, you can now begin directly sowing cold hardy crop seeds like lettuce, peas, kale, calendula, poppies, and wildflowers, and they'll come up with the rest of your garden as the soil warms. Just make sure to keep the area a little bit moist for consistent germination. And if you've purchased plants like cannas, calla lilies, begonias, elephant ears, and dahlias, now is the time that you're going to want to get them in pots. Now you're going to want to leave them indoors, like in a garage or somewhere where it's not too cold, because it is obviously way too cold to get them outside, but you can get them started in pots and then get them outside as soon as the danger of frost is over. One other quick tip, it is still too early to prune those roses. Just be patient, wait a couple more weeks. I'll let you know when it's okay to do it.
And that's your Gardening Utah tip of the week, brought to you by The Advocates. If you're in an accident, you deserve an advocate. Call 801-355-5550 or visit UtahAdvocates.com. Never miss a tip for your garden and never miss an episode. The Gardening Utah Podcast with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Okay, I have two very important announcements to make. Number one is a coupon code. So when we come back after this break, we're going to be talking with Parker Garlitz from TrueLeafMarket.com, but I wanted to give you the coupon code that you can use as a Gardening Utah listener on TrueLeafMarket.com, okay? So if you use the code JANA10, that's JANA 10, you can get $10 off a $50 purchase at TrueLeafMarket.com. That is a crazy deal. I hope that you're able to take advantage of it. It only works through March 31st, so keep that in mind. So I remember a few weeks back, I told you about a contest that was coming up that I'm super, super excited about, and it has finally come to light, and I cannot wait to tell you about it. It starts on Monday, March 8th. So this coming Monday, March 8th, you can go to either gardeningutah.com or 860kkat.com, and you will find an enter to win link that you can click, and then you can go through, enter our contest to win a 2x8 raised garden box from QNRBoxGardens.com. Seriously. Now, it's valued at over $400 because get this, you're not only going to get, if you win, the 2x8 raised garden bed, but you're also going to get it delivered to your home by Q&R Box Gardens. Hello. That is an amazing deal. So I'm really excited for this contest. And not only do you have one chance to win, there will be many different things that you can do and just follow the prompts and it will show you exactly how you can enter to win. And even better, we're going to be giving one of these boxes away once a month for 6 months. So you can enter as many times as you wish every month. And every month for the next 6 months, you're going to get additional chances to win new boxes. So I can't wait. Raised garden box from Q&R Box Gardens. It's going to be so cool. Okay, well, we're going to jump into a quick break, but we're going to be right back after this on Gardening Utah with Parker Garlitz, one of the founding partners of TrueLeafMarket.com. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden. Here's Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. We are having such a fun conversation with today's guest, Parker. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting. I've been really wanting to have you guys on the show, so I'm so happy that we finally made it happen. Why don't you tell the Gardening Utah listener all about TrueLeafMarket.com?
You bet. So we are a Utah-based seed company and proud to be one of the very few. And we sell not just to customers in Utah, but all around the nation and around the world. We ship seed all over.
That's amazing. And now, tell me the difference between Mountain Valley Seeds. Tell me the relation to Mountain Valley Seeds and TrueLeafMarket.com.
You bet. So we are effectively the same. Okay. So in 2014, Mountain Valley Seed Company merged with a Utah County company called Living Whole Foods. Mountain Valley Seed Company is a more traditional seed company with traditional garden, vegetable, and flower seeds, herb seeds. And Living Whole Foods was more of an indoor gardening company, a little bit more focused on wheatgrass, sprouts, and microgreens. So kind of an indoor growing, outdoor growing. We merged in 2014 and we became True Leaf Market, and we have maintained Mountain Valley Seed Company as our core brand of seeds. So our packages will say Mountain Valley Seed Company on it, but the company is True Leaf Market.
I see. Okay, so you're buying from TrueLeafMarket.com, but you're getting Mountain Valley Seeds.
Yep, and if you're familiar with the old mvseeds.com, you can still go there and it'll redirect you in.
Ah, perfect. Okay, that makes sense. Because I've in the past bought like pounds of wildflower seed. So I've noticed that does seem to be a little bit of a differentiator between TrueLeafMarket.com. Help me understand how you think that you guys differentiate from a lot of other seed companies.
Well, we associate with a lot of the better known seed companies in the United States through trade associations, et cetera. And there's a lot of great companies out there. Our focus is internally. We have a debate, right? Are we a seed company that sells online, or are we an e-commerce company that sells seeds? And that sounds like the same thing, but it's really two different perspectives. And the truth is, we've decided we're both. So we have great high quality seeds, but our focus is delivering them fast, affordably, with a great website experience, great customer service experience. So a little bit different than a lot of seed companies, like, back years ago. If you placed an order over the phone with Mountain Valley, it might take them 2 weeks to ship the order. In a lot of cases, we ship orders out in 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. So do you guys get the question a lot? Because I ran an e-commerce company here in Utah for 12 years. And the number one question we got, at least from the state of Utah, is, can I come pick up my order and not pay shipping? So let's get that question out of the way. You're smiling because I know you've heard this a million times.
We do get it. And I will tell you, over a year ago, it was no problem at all. We were happy to have everybody in, but with the COVID issues, we're trying to keep a workforce healthy. We do have a pickup option, so you can place an order online. You can pay for it online, and then instead of choosing to have it delivered, you can leave it for will call pickup. But we don't really have walk-in business the way that we used to years ago. And again, mostly that's been a COVID thing. But we do have warehouse pickup if you pre-place your order online. But we also do free shipping on orders over I think $45 if I'm not mistaken. So if you're in Utah, it'll save you the trip, and you'll get it. In most cases, if you order today, you'll probably get it the next business day or 2 business days in an extreme case.
Isn't that amazing? I love that. I love that. I know. I remember thinking back to certain orders that I would ship in the past, and I would think, my goodness, this was a $2.50. This would have been $2.50 to ship, but this person's coming from Ogden to pick it up, and it didn't make sense to me because of the gas money.
Well, like I say, we're happy to have local Utah gardeners come and pick their seed up directly after placing an order online. But we're happy to ship it too, and it's the way I look at it is the mailman and the UPS guy is going to be driving on your street anyway. Yeah, they may as well drop off an extra box.
Yep, they may as well bring you the seeds. Yep. Okay, so there has been a lot of talk in the last year with regard to seed shortages, not just in Utah but all over the place, globally. And I can't imagine what this has done for your business. I know a lot of people are seed hoarding at the store. They go and clean off a whole rack. What is your perspective?
Well, yeah. So there is some of that happening. Last year when COVID hit, I think the president declared a state of emergency or something around the 11th or 12th of March, and our order volume just hockey sticked at that point. I mean, it's like somebody flipped a switch overnight. And that was no different from any and every seed company that we associate with. And we associate with an awful lot of seed companies. There was a huge demand for garden seeds. Last spring, we got way behind on orders, weren't able to keep up. Most of our competitors weren't able to keep up. We never did get to the point where we said, hey, we're not going to take any more orders. But we had a lot of competitors actually turn off their website and say, hey, we're going to be back, 8 days from now after we've kind of caught up. Yeah. But what that basically did is it put a lot of pressure on the international supply of garden seeds. The way that the seed industry works is growers, seed farms, tend to be a pretty conservative lot. They don't think in terms of, okay, we're going to grow 20 or 30% next year in terms of the volume. If they're really aggressive, they might grow 2% more than they did last year. And part of the reason for that is, the real risk factor if you're a seed grower or a broker is getting stuck with a huge amount of seed that you can't move. That's where they get in real trouble. So they tend to be very conservative, and the supply pattern tends to be, what did we do last year? We're going to do the same thing this year, plus or minus a very small percentage. So when the demand got so big, it pulled a lot of seed out of the supply. And yeah, you can go on the internet and find dozens and dozens of articles about, the great seed apocalypse of 2021. And I think that's probably overstated. I don't think there's any real cause for concern. Here's kind of the way we look at it. We've been working hard to build our inventory. Right now, we have a weird inventory. Because on the one hand, going into the spring season, and there were millions of new gardeners minted last year. Because of COVID, silver linings and all that.
Absolutely.
Just thrilled to see so many new people embracing the hobby. We've worked hard to prepare for this year and build our inventory. So we have a seed inventory right now that's higher than it's ever been for us. But at the same time, we are out of stock on more varieties than we've ever been out of stock on. So it's not a question that there isn't any seed. It's a question of there may not be seed in your favorite variety this year. Next year, probably we'll be back to some semblance of normalcy would be my guess. But I'll give you an example. If you go check out most of our competitors and you really like Cherokee purple tomatoes, you're going to have a very hard time finding Cherokee purple.
Yes.
We happen to have a couple of pounds of Cherokee purple, and when it's gone, probably will be gone in, pretty quick. It's gone, and we're probably not going to have any more until, maybe January of 2022. Yeah. So Meanwhile, we've got a great supply of 40 or 50 other varieties of tomatoes, but we're probably out of stock on 20 or 30 varieties of tomatoes because they just can't be had. Herbs are under a lot of pressure. It's that kind of thing. So will you be able to get seeds? Yes. Will you need to make some kind of substitution mindset? I can't get my favorite. Like my favorite is pineapple tomato. I love pineapple tomatoes. If you can't get a pineapple tomato, then you may have to look at a hillbilly tomato or something close.
Yeah. That's the second time in 2 days I've heard about the pineapple tomato. That's so interesting that you brought that up.
I love it. It's kind of a half orange, half yellow tomato. And it is just, if you pick it right out of the garden and eat it while it's still warm, it's just mind-bogglingly delicious.
Oh my word.
It is my favorite tomato.
I was saying yesterday, because I was actually in a kind of a group gardening session, and everyone was talking about their very favorite tomato, and one of them mentioned pineapple, and I had never heard of it. So I think that's a sign that I might need to get my hands on some of these.
Might check it out. I don't even know if we have it in stock, but I can check for you real fast.
Oh, that'd be so interesting. Because I got the advantage right now, because I got to buy the seeds before this goes out to the public for Gardening Utah, because I can flat guarantee all of our listeners right now are on trueleafmarket.com. They're looking up Cherokee Purple and pineapple seeds.
Yeah, the bad news is we're out of stock on both our conventional and organic versions of pineapple tomato. So it's one of the ones under pressure. It's going to be a long, difficult summer without that tomato.
Boy, well, maybe I'll keep an eye out, maybe for at least even varieties that have been sprouted. Maybe I'll find
somebody else might have them. Like I say, we've got Cherokee Purple. Almost nobody else does, at least for while our small supply lasts. And that's just kind of the year it's going to be.
Yeah.
So there's no seed apocalypse coming, but you are going to have to accept some substitutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So other than certain varieties of vegetables that are just knowingly popular, like the Cherokee Purple, are there any other sort of vegetables or certain flower seeds that you're discovering the same with? Like shout out a couple other like really popular things that are just flying off the shelves right now.
Yeah, so there is a pretty decent shortage of Black Beauty zucchini because zucchini is always popular. And last year during COVID, we got so busy I had to go pick orders. Right, all the owners and the customer service team and the marketing team we're all down picking and packing, and I saw so much black zucchini go off the shelf. I thought, man, this nation is going to be awash in zucchini come fall. And I had some neighbors dumping zucchini on my porch.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, I was doing that too.
Yeah. Zucchini's real popular. I mean, tomatoes are always popular. Corn is always popular. There's beans and peas are under a little bit of pressure supply wise. And again, it's not that you can't get them. It just, you may not get your favorite variety. Those tend to be pretty short right now. And that's mostly it. I mean, if we're out of snowball cauliflower, which is a very popular variety cauliflower, but we have other varieties. So
yeah,
it's that kind of thing.
How do you feel like the Utah gardener or the Utah seed buyer? Do you sense any difference between the Utah seed buyer and other buyers from outside of Utah?
In terms of varieties, not so much. I mean, it does go to a growing zone in our particular climate. I felt like a week and a half ago, maybe it was time to start thinking about planting, but I resisted, and good thing, right? So,
totally.
It's mostly a seasonality thing. Folks this week accepted Texas is under a sheet of ice, but under a normal circumstance, folks in Texas and Florida and places like that would be already buying and planting seeds, whereas Utah, Idaho, Montana, we're not so much yet. But so it's more of a timing thing than it is a variety thing. Yep,
I think so for sure. So with a lot of these people that hoarded seeds last year and possibly even this year, how long can they store the seed packets that they bought?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and probably the best way to tackle that is to talk about it in terms of the way the seed industry looks at seeds, right?
Yeah.
So virtually almost all of the seed in the United States that's grown is what we call crop year seed. It's designed by Mother Nature to be harvested in the fall, over winter, to plant generally in the spring, and that's when you're going to get very high germination rates. And the longer seed goes, the lower the germination rate goes. Generally, you're going to get a great year if your seed is fresh. If it was harvested in the fall and you plant in the spring, you're in great shape. You're going to get, generally speaking, 95% germination rates plus or minus. If you hold that seed for a second year, it might drop to 90%. If you hold it for a third year, you might be in the 80s. If you hold it for a fourth year, that's when you really start a steep germination decline generally. And there's the asterisk there is that it varies by variety.
Yeah.
Right? Some varieties will hold their germination very, very well, while other varieties not so much. So it really depends. You can extend germination time by freezing seeds, but the real trick is this, right? I mean, I know there's a story that goes around about they found some ancient Egyptian wheat in canopic jars in tombs in Israel, or in Egypt, and planted it and got a couple of seeds to sprout and germinate, and they resurrected an ancient Egyptian crop. So you're thinking, well, how does that work?
Well, it's time for a quick break, but we will be right back with more right here on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
860 KKAT with Jana Francis and Gardening Utah, where it's always mulch time. She really does have the nicest yard on the block. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. We are having such a fun conversation with today's guest, and we are going to continue that discussion right now.
It's a question of conditions, right? So germination rate is tied to the moisture content of seed. So seed farms usually sell their seed by the pound, so they're incentivized to sell seed wet, right? So if we buy like 10,000 pounds of broccoli seed, it weighed 10,000 pounds when it left the seed farm. When it gets to us, it might have lost 30 or 40 pounds. We didn't lose any seeds, but there's moisture content in the seed that evaporates off. So every seed variety has an ideal moisture content that will allow that seed to germinate for a long time period. So if you're buying food storage seeds that have been properly dried, you can get 5 or 10 years of germination before germination rates start to plummet. You can extend that. But mostly if you're buying packets off the rack at the hardware store, or buying packets online from an online vendor, those are crop year seeds, and generally you want to plant them this spring. You might hold them until next spring. They might still germinate well. If you're holding them past that, I wouldn't direct sow. I would do seed starts so that you know what germinated and what didn't.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so basically you kind of gotta, if you bought a bunch of seeds last year, we got to get those in the ground.
Yeah, it would be time to get those planted, because again, unless they've been specially dried, they're probably not going to last much longer than a year or 3.
Yeah. So in my tip of the week last week, I was telling listeners that, because I've already seen people start their tomato seeds, and I just think, oh no, it's just too early. At least, well, by the time this podcast airs, it might not be. Well, it still would be a little early to plant tomatoes, but really, I think it's a good time to reiterate that, this time of year, it's so tempting you get your seeds and you're so excited you're going to start them all. And that's what I see new gardeners do. They get their seeds and they think it's time to start everything, not understanding that, okay, right now is definitely a time where you can get, lettuce, your cold season crops, things like broccoli and cauliflower and onion, get those in. You can even get your peppers in. Not because they're cold season, but they just take longer to grow. But really the key is knowing, because Utah is so diverse and vast in climate. And so you really got to know, what is your frost date? And you've got to know and go backward on the seed packet in time to say, okay, for peppers, it's 8 to 10 weeks, or sometimes 8 to 12 weeks. For tomatoes, it's 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 8 sometimes.
Yep.
So what other bits of advice do you have for people new to gardening on what to plant and when, or at least start the seeds?
That is a huge topic.
Yeah.
And probably more than we can cover. Here's what I would say. We have a PDF on our website. It's a vegetable growing guide. We also have an herb growing guide that goes by variety: tomatoes, corn, et cetera, that basically gives you the growing tips, all the guidelines. It's typically much more thorough than you'd find on the back of a seed packet because of space limitations, right?
Yeah.
And we have that as a free PDF. And if you just go and look for and search that on our website, you can find it and download it. And that will give you a good idea. Now, it's not going to say, for you, it's not written for Utahns, right?
Yeah.
But, as you pointed out, if you're in Logan or St. George, you may as well be in two different countries when it comes to when you start your garden.
Yeah.
So that I think will give you the advice. It will give you germination time. It will give you time to maturity, time to transplant, all those types of things.
Okay, so Gardening Utah listeners, I will find this, and I can also put that in a direct link to that in our episode notes.
Oh, cool.
For this show, so it'll link directly to it. And I could also post it on our social media for everybody as well. Well, it's time for a quick break, but we will be right back with more right here on Gardening Utah. Stay with us.
She's more than just gardening puns and sage advice. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis on 860 KKAT. 860 KKAT with more of the fastest growing show on radio. It's Gardening Utah with Jana Francis.
Welcome back to Gardening Utah. I'm your host, Jana Francis. We are having such a fun conversation with today's guest, and we are going to continue that discussion right now. Okay, so Parker, what is the difference between non-GMO and hybrid seeds?
Yeah, great question. We deal with this. We deal with that a lot as a seed company. Let me just hit the GMO question first. All of the seed that we sell is non-GMO, and of course we advertise it that way. And we do get, in social media and things, we get people accusing us of being, fear mongers and hitting the non-GMO thing. It's not so much because, we're taking a firm stance one way or the other. We would leave that to people to decide for themselves. But so many people who are concerned about GMOs don't really understand how the GMO seed industry works. And here's an easy answer. How do you know that your seed is non-GMO? If you didn't have to sign a contract with Monsanto or Seminis or Syngenta or Bayer or any of those big, gigantic agribusiness companies to buy the seed, then it's probably non-GMO, because there's just not that many varieties of seeds that are genetically modified. They're going for big money crops like corn and soy. And as a general rule, I don't think you're going to find a GMO kohlrabi. It just doesn't exist. There's not enough money in it. Nobody wants to modify a turnip because there's not enough money in that crop. So all the seeds we have are non-GMO. And what's the difference? I guess the question is, what's the difference between a GMO crop and a hybrid crop? Well, every vegetable, every plant that you eat is a hybrid of some other plant at some point, right? Like the magic idea is cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower and mustard, and they're all brassica. They're all descended from the same plant. Brussels sprouts. There you go.
Right? Yes.
They're all the same plant. They've been hybridized to the point that you don't realize that they have a common ancestor, right? And that's all natural. It happens naturally when, bees and butterflies cross-pollinate. So a hybrid seed is cross-pollinated manually with little brushes or Q-tips or whatever in a greenhouse where they keep the bees out, so there's no accidental pollination. So a hybrid seed is kind of natural hybridized, right? It's not happening with a microscope and a lab and gene splicing or whatever. So GMOs are in the lab, hybrids are natural. So, but with hybrid seed, it's a little tricky, and we'll distinguish hybrid seed versus open pollinated seed. So a hybrid seed, it's easier to think about dogs. And an example with dogs that everybody would be familiar with, like a Labradoodle, right, is a cross between a Labrador and a poodle. So you get this cool looking Labradoodle, but if you breed two Labradoodles together, what will you get? Will you get another Labradoodle, or you'll get, who knows what you're going to get? You might get a poodle, you might get a lab, you might get any degree. So that third generation is not going to be a reliable reflection of a Labradoodle parent. Does that make sense? And the same thing happens with hybrid seeds. So you have variety of tomato A and variety of tomato B, and you hybridize them. Well, that seed is going to grow a very reliable tomato with certain characteristics. Maybe it's, cold weather tolerant, or maybe it's disease resistant or drought resistant or whatever. And then if you harvest seeds from that tomato and plant those, you're not going to get the same kind of characteristics in that subsequent generation. So that's a hybrid. An open pollinated seed is seeds that will produce the same characteristic generation after generation if you harvest and save the seeds, if that kind of makes sense.
Okay, and so is that any different than heirloom then?
Yeah, so heirloom is a fun question. What's the definition of heirloom? It depends on who you ask, right? So an heirloom seed is by definition an open pollinated seed, but depending on who you ask, some seed companies will say if it's open pollinated, meaning reliable characteristics generation after generation, it is therefore automatically heirloom. While other companies, and I think we're in the other companies camp, for us, we don't label a seed heirloom unless we have experience. We've been in business since 1974. So what is that? That's going on. We're coming up on 50 years. So if we don't have experience with that variety of seed, or otherwise know for a fact that it's been around, at least your grandparents planted that seed, we don't call it heirloom.
Oh, wow.
Right? So for us, heirloom is open pollinated that has been around for many decades. If that's the case, then we will go ahead and label that's an heirloom seed. And in some cases, there's heirlooms that you can find in, seed catalogs dating back to the 1800s that have been around for a long, long, long time.
Wow.
That's the difference for us. So open pollinated doesn't necessarily mean heirloom for us, but you'll find other seed companies that have a more liberal definition. And
yeah,
it'd be nice if everybody was on the same page with that.
I was going to say, it's almost makes it feel like, organic vegetables in the grocery store, right? Because it seems like there's so many different definitions of what that means. And I agree with you. I wish there was a little bit more regulation around it, but I appreciate the way that True Leaf Market treats that.
And you'll find a lot of seed companies kind of have the same approach, but they may quibble at the edges on, is this an heirloom or is it not? There's not really a hard definition for that. But yeah.
Do you find that consumers are wanting more heirloom flowers or vegetables, or do you find a difference?
We're not a huge player in flowers. We have a decent offering of flowers, but we sell vastly more vegetable and herb seeds and microgreens and sprouts than we do flowers. Oh. So, and I'm a little bit out of my area of expertise with the flower seed, but my sense is the heirloom aspect of it is less interesting to hardcore flower gardeners than the gee whiz, here's a new cool flower with new coloring.
Yeah.
Right. So, with vegetables, I want my pineapple tomato and I don't want anybody to monkey with it.
That's right.
But with flowers, new and interesting, I think. So I think there's different mindsets to some degree, but again, I'm a little bit out of my area of expertise on answering that definitively.
Yeah. Okay, so is right now, the beginning of March is now the time when just people are just like, is this your busiest time of year, or are there other times of year that you have big spikes in business?
Well, it depends. We're a little bit more diverse in our seed lineup than some, I guess, what I would call traditional straight garden seed companies. For our garden seed line, absolutely. March and April are the two biggest months of the year for us. And it starts getting busy in January, and February is busier, but then March and April are usually the peak, and then it starts going downhill from there. But we carry a lot of cover crops. And so September, October, November are very busy for us in cover crops. We're not selling a huge amount of vegetable seeds, but we're selling tons of cover crop seed. We do a lot with microgreens and sprouts. And while there is some seasonality to those businesses, they tend to be less peak and valley than garden seeds. So we sell a lot of microgreen seeds and sprout seeds throughout the year, a lot of grain seeds that aren't necessarily tied to seasonality either. Okay.
So now that you mentioned microgreens, how are microgreens different from vegetables?
So let's take broccoli as a case study, right? A broccoli seed is a broccoli seed is a broccoli seed.
Okay.
But when you harvest it, differentiates whether you're talking about a sprout or whether you're talking about a microgreen or whether you're talking about a full-grown, mature broccoli plant.
Uh-huh.
So if you plant broccoli seeds and grow them as a sprout, which typically you're rinsing in a jar or a tray, you're basically 3 days from the time that you first get that seed wet until you harvest it and eat the broccoli sprout. And typically you're growing it aquaponically with absolutely no grow medium at all. You're just rinsing the seed periodically.
Yep.
A microgreen you're going to plant in a medium like soil or like a hydroponic grow pad, like a baby blanket batting kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And you let that grow for 12 days, 14 days, somewhere in that neighborhood, 8 to 12 days. And you've got a much larger juvenile plant than a sprout. At that point, the broccoli plant hasn't grown out any of its true leaves, which is kind of the name of our company a little bit. That's where that comes from, right?
Oh, so, really? I love that. Okay.
Yeah, so we're True Leaf Market, right? But as a microgreen, you're harvesting the microgreen while the baby leaves, the cotyledons, right, is the technical term, while the cotyledons are still there and no true leaves have emerged. So you're harvesting those at 14 days, and then if you let those continue to grow, then you get broccoli.
Okay, so there's no difference in the seeds.
There's really no difference. It's just how you grow it and when you harvest it. That's the key fundamental difference. Okay. And the neat thing about microgreens for me, I'm much more a microgreen grower and a sprout grower than I am a gardener. My wife is the real gardener in our family. And I'm what am I? I'm recruited for my manual labor, right? But I tend to grow a lot more indoors with microgreens and sprouts, and you can do that all year long.
Yeah, that's so fun. It's so fun. Okay, so I know I'm going to get this question if I don't ask it. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, that a user buys a packet of broccoli seeds from trueleafmarket.com, and they sprout them and plant them this year, and then let some go to seed.
Yep.
That seed can then be dried and then replanted as sprouts or microgreens, or should you continually buy the fresh packets?
No, you can absolutely save those seeds. You can absolutely save them. Now, the key is if they're hybrid, you can save them and you don't know what you're going to get. At the microgreen stage, it doesn't really matter. Right, which is kind of the neat thing because, 7 different varieties, Waltham versus Desicio broccoli, you couldn't tell the difference at the microgreen stage.
Yeah.
At the full grown stage, there's a difference. So if you're growing them as microgreens, even a hybrid seed, it doesn't matter because it's not going to exhibit any distinct characteristics in that early phase of growth. But yeah, if you save those seeds from an open pollinated year to year, then and if you're interested in having an emergency supply of seed and you're willing to do that effort to save those seeds, that's ultimate. I mean, that's how our great grandparents did it.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep. I've even found pictures recently of my ancestors where there's sprouted onions in the back of, their photography, and that they're saving those seeds.
They're saving the seeds.
Year. Yep.
You got it.
Absolutely. I love that. In fact, I do that with my spring onion, which is another reason why I asked the question is one year I let my, scallion seeds get too big, and then I let them go. And then once they went to seed, those big, huge seed pods.
Yep.
And then I sprouted a bunch, and they're delicious. They're delicious.
Indeed. Yep.
And then, of course, I sprinkled them anywhere else I wanted them because they're not that invasive. They're just, you pick them when they're so young and you've got fresh scallions. I just love it. Anyway.
Indeed.
Okay, so this is a question, Parker, that I ask a lot of Gardening Utah guests. What is one thing that you wish every Utah gardener knew?
Oh, that's a tough question. I guess the thing I would say, and this is the opposite of a self-serving answer. But don't plant your seeds before the last frost date in whatever region of Utah that you live. Now, if you do plant your seeds before the last frost date, well, then you got to go buy more seeds. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? But if you just be patient.
Yes.
In early February this year, the weather was amazing and could have planted.
Yep.
But then the snows came and the freezing came, and it wouldn't have worked. So Be patient.
That's right.
Summer is long. There's not many crops that take the whole summer to grow.
Isn't that the truth? Why are we always in such a hurry? Well, it's because the winters are long here and we're so excited to start.
The magic is fresh, ripe tomatoes by the 4th of July.
Oh.
And you gotta be very conscientious time-wise and get your seed starts and then plant properly. And
you really do. That's a tough one.
A lot of people try for that magic 4th of July tomato. And you know what? It's great, but be patient. Don't plant too early.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. Okay, Parker, we have a special code for Gardening Utah listeners. Why don't you tell everybody about it?
You bet. So if you are keen on checking out trueleafmarket.com, we'd be happy to give you a coupon code that will expire here at the end of March. But the code is Jana 10, Jana 10, Jana 10,
Woohoo!
and it's good for $10 off any order over $50 at True Leaf Market.
That is amazing. And then it also does that come with free shipping?
If your order's over, I think 45, it's free shipping. So yes.
Yeah, so that's a no-brainer, Gardening Utah. So go on out there, check it out, trueleafmarket.com, and get your seeds if you haven't already. Well, Parker, thank you so much for being here on Gardening Utah. I can't wait to have you back.
Thank you so much for having us. It was certainly a pleasure.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Gardening Utah. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. As always, let me know what you'd like to see on the show. You can message me on Instagram. Our handle is @GardeningUtah. Or if you hit up the episode notes on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can see links to a lot of things that we talked about today. And you can link over to our social media and check out our Instagram, our Facebook, and send us a message that way as well. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed to the show. And you know what? Give me a 5-star rating. I would love you for it. And if you give us a review and give us some love, we'll give it right back to you and read it on the show. Thanks again for listening. Shout out to our producer, Lambo. I'm Jana Francis. We'll see you next week here on Gardening Utah. And remember, grow big or go home.
When you're ready to grow big or go home, make your neighbors green with envy. Get the Gardening in Utah podcast, Gardening Utah, available wherever you get your podcasts and at 860kkat.com/garden.
We are supported by ProgressivePlant.com. ProgressivePlants.com. They are your neighbors next door and experts at helping you choose the perfect and unique plants that will thrive in your location. Progressive Plants is passionate about helping homeowners, expert gardeners, novices alike choose the correct plant for your soil. They don't just grow plants, they know plants. Let Progressive Plants help you today. Just go to ProgressivePlants.com and check out their wide selection. You can also go to the Design tab and look at the expert expert designers that they have that can help you plan your perfect yard. Visit progressiveplants.com today.